Hello, and welcome to today's 31st webinar in the On the Move series, Applying DC Science to the Art of Retail with Voice, brought to you by Honeywell Intelligrated. I'm Tracy Niehaus, Director of Marketing for Honeywell Intelligrated, and I'm your moderator today. We have just a few announcements before we begin. Please note that this presentation's audio is provided by phone number or through your computer sound system, so be sure to turn up your computer's volume. You may ask an online question at any time throughout today's presentation in the Q&A feature along the bottom of your screen. Simply type your question into the text area and hit send. Questions will be addressed at the conclusion of the presentation, with the exception of technical questions that can be asked and will be answered real time. Please note, we recommend that you be hardwired when attending this webinar. A Wi-Fi connection may result in lag time in slides updating and graphics loading. Today's webinar will include polling questions. Please feel free to answer these questions when they appear, and be sure to click submit so we can include your response, as we will be sharing the results real time during this live event. If you'd like to revisit key sections of today's webinar, it will be available on demand at intelligrated.com/on-the-move approximately 48 hours after this live event. You'll also receive an email in a couple of days with a link to the recorded event. Now on to the presentation, Applying DC Science to the Art of Retail with Voice. Discussing today's topic will be John Karenbauer, Senior Product and Offering Manager, Honeywell Voice. John has more than 20 years of experience implementing and developing innovative technology solutions. For the last 3 years, he has led new product development of Android voice solutions at Honeywell Voice. He is a recognized thought leader on solution implementation for the retail supply chain and is leading the development of Honeywell Voice software products that focus on the mobile worker for the distribution center, retail, and inspection environments. And with that introduction, the webinar will now begin.
Thanks, Tracy. I appreciate the introduction. And I thank everybody for spending some time with us today to talk about retail, which is a subject I'm very passionate about, spending so much time in retail over the years. So for today, we're going to talk about some of the trends and challenges that retailers are facing, and even more present based on global events that have been occurring over the last several months. As well as we're going to talk about how Honeywell is taking the solutions that they apply to the distribution center part of the supply chain and bringing those forward and implementing them in a retail environment so that retailers can see some of the same benefits as their operational processes change over time. Again, there will be some poll questions, and so we'll try to make this a little interactive for you, as well as there will be a video to show an animation of the solution. Again, questions at the end, and we can even take some of those during the presentation, as Tracy mentioned. So the first trend that we're seeing, and it should really be no surprise to anybody on the webinar, is that consumer behaviors are changing, and they're changing rapidly. We've seen that over the course of the last several years, most people are migrating to some type of online shopping experience, depending on the particular goods that they're interested in purchasing. And with the recent global events, we're even seeing more traction and more consumers moving to that online type of purchase. So with that, we're going to go to our first poll question, and that is, what type of shift have you seen in your operations related to click and collect or home delivery type services in the past few months? Have you seen an increase of 100% or more, an increase of somewhere in the middle of 50 to 99%, an increase of 1 to 49%, no change at all, everything stayed the same, or are you seeing a decrease in some level, 50 to 100% of your business, or even more than that? So we'll let this stay up here for a few seconds and call those results done. And it looks like most people are seeing some type of double-digit increase, and in some cases even triple-digit, which isn't really that much of a surprise. Let me stop sharing here. So if we take a look at what we're seeing from the data related to global events and COVID-19 and the impact on retailers, as many of you outlined, right, we're seeing an increase in sales, an increase in online traffic related to specific industries. And if you stop and take a think about it, that makes perfect sense, right? People are sheltering in place, they're relying more on online services, specifically for some of the essentials that frontline workers are providing to us, related to groceries. You can see the spike in some of these other industries related to people most likely setting up some type of home office environment. And then you see the decline in other industries that maybe people are making decisions on their purchasing behavior. Maybe I'm not going to purchase that, particular suit or dress or whatever it might be, maybe home furnishings, because they're not going out as much. They're trying to conserve their resources because of some of the unknown factors. But if we focus on that supermarket type customer, you can see the huge shift to the online traffic, which is a very interesting statistic, since the adoption of online supermarket shopping has been ramping slowly. And this is a really big jumpstart to pushing the consumers almost in a forced way to shop in an online fashion for groceries. With trend number 2, this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody either if you're associated with the retail environment at all, is the decentralization of distribution centers. So many retailers have their own distribution centers, big giant million-square-foot facilities, right? And they're starting to either create smaller decentralized distribution centers or micro-fulfillment centers, or they're adopting some type of fulfillment operation out of their brick-and-mortar locations. And in some cases, turning those brick-and-mortar locations into what we refer to as a dark store. It looks environmentally just like a store, but it is vacant of any type of customer interaction. So we refer to it as a dark store. And that's really what we're seeing specifically around COVID, is an increased need to roll out some type of dark store or micro-fulfillment capability even quicker than what retailers were planning initially. And this has been widely publicized over the last several months, with retailers making announcements so that their customers understand how they're positioning themselves to fulfill their needs, and that increase in online demand that we just spoke about a slide ago. And they're really trying to understand, how quickly can I get these dark stores up and running, and how does this impact my overall strategy? And many of these retailers that are mentioned here on the slide have been very public about some of these dark stores will be a permanent fixture in their supply chain, and others have said this is a temporary solution until we have or roll out our larger strategy. And in some cases, that could be a micro-fulfillment type distribution center that is associated with a certain geographic location that can distribute through the supermarket goods or other goods with some type of automation. And there's going to be future On the Move webinars related to that topic, so please look out for those. If we look at trend number 3, and that's really what we're talking about today, is how are retailers investing and adapting their operations to keep up with the new normal. And the new normal related to this demand of online shopper, it seems like we've hit a plateau from the data and the retailers that I've spoken with, where there was this immediate ramp up that we saw in March related to COVID-19 and people figuring out different ways to get their groceries and other items. And there was a huge ramp and a lot of work by retailers to adapt and deploy operational solutions or technical solutions to meet that demand. And now retailers are taking a breath and understanding how they can maintain and be, same type of level of productivity, if not better, as well as be as profitable as they were before. Because as you've probably seen firsthand, and even several different articles in publications like the Wall Street Journal or Bloomberg, is it costs much more of an expense or an investment for retailers to operate at this level. So they need to understand where are the good places to invest their time and resources so that they can operate in this new normal, but do it cost effectively. So what we're seeing is there's this huge spike specific to in-home delivery or pickup at the supermarket, 37% as of April. And this is going to really fast track the growth in this area related to how many people are buying their groceries online and how quickly the adoption of this channel of purchase for supermarkets is going to activate throughout the next several years. And really what that's doing is that's driving how you as a retailer or retail organization is determining what you invest in. The consumer is really driving that based on their purchasing habits and some of the things that they're demanding from the retailer. So we see that this growth and this investment in this online channel is not going to slow down anytime soon and is actually going to grow faster than anybody expected because of the events that we're experiencing today. So the good news is there is a huge opportunity for what I would refer to as the traditional supermarket and even hypermarkets like Walmart and Target and Asda and others that offer both general merchandise and supermarket or traditional grocery items, because the customer wants to purchase those types of items with retailers that they trust can deliver the quality and at the service level that they're expecting. So while there is small incremental growth from 2017 to 2018, that growth is continuing to trend on a very hockey stick-like trajectory, especially since COVID-19 happened. And that's where if retailers, specifically supermarkets or hypermarkets, can determine what are the best operational processes to attack and prioritize their investments in people, process, and technology, they can come out on the other side of this very well positioned to deal with this new normal that we spoke about. The other thing that's very interesting is related to the repeat purchase process. So typically, once you purchase something online, you have a propensity to continue to purchase items like that or from a retailer that you had a good experience with on a regular basis. And this typically after that first purchase. What we see in supermarket and hypermarket type purchases is specifically more with the supermarket or the grocery type items, is that it typically takes 3 to 5 purchase experiences for the customer to have a comfort level that the retailer can deliver both on the quality and the service level that the customer is expecting. And it's always been a marketing tactic and an operational tactic to have those customers try that online experience a few times free of charge so they can understand and become comfortable that your operational processes can meet their needs. And the adoption has been a little slower, but what the new normal that's been brought to us by COVID-19 is we've escalated how many people are shopping these channels. They've become comfortable with them over the last 3 months or so. And many of those new customers that you have shopping, or existing customers you have shopping in a new way, will now continue to use that online service because they have trust and faith that you're going to deliver on your commitments to them, whether it be a quality or a service level or the convenience, whatever it might mean to them, they've determined that you can meet that on a regular basis. So this new normal of online demand is going to hang around, right? You're going to have some customers that go back into the store because that's what they like, that's what they enjoy, it's how they enjoy shopping. But you're going to have a brand new set of customers that you as a retail operations leader are going to need to understand how you're going to provide those services and provide them in not only an effective way to the customer, but an operational process, but also at a cost that you can absorb as a retailer, because providing these services, providing all the mechanisms for safety equipment that we're going to have to provide now can be very costly. So doing this in a cost-effective way for this new normal, this new demand that you're going to see online on a continued basis is something that retailers are starting to prepare for, so that they're ready for any other global events that might happen that would increase this current spike in traffic to whatever the next level is. So with that, we're going to ask our next poll question. So how have you addressed the increase or addition of any click and collect activity in your operation, right? Are you adding more labor? Are you creating dark stores, or acting on your micro fulfillment strategy in a quicker way? Are you allowing time slots to match your availability of labor, or you're just not making any changes? So we'll give it a couple more seconds here, and we'll end that poll. So it looks like the leader is in the dark store strategy, and adding more labor seem to be very close, which is what we're seeing as well when we talk to other retailers based on the articles that we're reading every day, is that there's two primary mechanisms that are happening. One is adding labor, which can be very expensive. And to be honest, sometimes it's very hard to find the labor, a good quality labor that understands how to pick groceries or other goods for that matter. As well as dark stores, we have seen the rise of the dark store, as I mentioned, and we're seeing those in different regions, but that's a little more costly, and in some cases, there's trade-offs for the business to be able to stand up a dark store very quickly. And then the other one that I think is interesting is we have a small percentage that are saying, we're just going to continue to limit the pickup and delivery times that we have available, and we'll work within our means, and we'll do our best to kind of weather the tide and make it through this. Very interesting. So what does the future look like for those that are able to survive this and make the transition? Is really around the stores. The retail locations are embracing the concept and the solutions to become and operate more like a distribution center. And we'll talk about that here in a minute on another slide. Right? Being able to deal with the fluctuations in labor, getting good labor, attracting that labor, keeping them, training them, all sorts of labor challenges that retailers face on a daily basis. Right? At the end of the day, and this has been happening for the last, say, 5 years at a very high level, is the customer experience is going to win a lot of customers to be very loyal, right? They can go to any online store. It's less about having to drive somewhere, right? It's very convenient just to go online. So having a great customer experience and meeting the customer expectations is going to be critical to making sure that you are a successful retailer moving forward, as well as meeting the customer demands around how they get the products that they order online, whether it be a pickup location that's convenient for them or having delivery options that meet their needs. So how does Honeywell view this, and what does the good future of retail look like to us? It looks like this, and it's very similar to our processes and how we think about bringing process improvement and technology solutions to the distribution center. Right? We follow a process where we leverage your standardized operating procedures, and we review those with you, and we highlight and talk about potential process improvements that you can choose to implement or not. And then we take those standardized processes and we execute them using software solutions that we have in our Honeywell portfolio that really direct the worker step by step through the process, which provides a very consistent process for your workers so that you can know that your workers are doing the same process over and over the same way. And this also acts as a training mechanism, so we can onboard and train people much more effectively and efficiently. And then lastly, because we have this standardized processes and execution tools, we can then review on a regular basis and determine, are there ways we can optimize these processes, optimize other things in your operational environment to make you even more efficient. And one of the software tools that we use to do that is what we refer to as guided work for retail. So we're going to start a couple-minute video here to give you a sense.
This is Bob, a manager for a major retailer, and he has a problem. Foot traffic and sales at his 100 retail stores have declined 10% year over year, and profit margins are shrinking because of competition from online-only retailers. To better compete, Bob is offering online ordering and in-store pickup. However, too often online orders at stores are filled inaccurately and not bundled efficiently. As a result, his labor and logistics costs have increased 20%. Overall, if Bob wants to stay in business, he needs to make his store operations more efficient and flexible, and his workers more productive. Fortunately, Honeywell can help with an array of worker solutions. Bob's employees now use Honeywell solutions that combine headsets, software, and mobile devices that direct his employees to find products faster and ensure they select the right products when filling online orders. Now those orders are filled 20% faster and with better than 99.9% accuracy. Bob uses the same technology to train new store workers more quickly without taking time from other employees. That training now takes considerably less time, days instead of weeks. Honeywell technology also helps workers report when items are out of stock or getting low on the shelves, so they can refill from the back room, or tell the distribution center to send more products in the next truck to arrive that day. Customers now always find the product they want, at the store they want, when they want it. Now Bob's stores are more efficient and productive. His customers are happy, costs are down, and sales are up. So Bob is now looking for new ways to make his business even better. He is talking to Honeywell about his operations data and how data analytics can help him find more competitive advantages.
So if we take a look at how guided work for retail can apply to your different environments or your retail environment, you can, as we've talked through, the consumers are have new demands, right? And those demands are not so much changing as they once were when, you know, click and collect and other types of services were just now becoming relevant, but it's now the scale at which they're requiring these types of in-store options, and how you as a retailer react and adapt and apply different solutions to these new customer needs. And, you know, obviously with the online traffic increasing based on COVID-19, we're seeing that increase in order picking, which is a very labor-intensive task. Typical supermarket order takes about an hour to pick on average, and that limits how many orders you can do per day based on the available labor and the available inventory in the store. So having a focus on order picking and inventory management and other operational functions, very similar to a distribution center, is one area you can focus. And we think that this guided work concept of standardized processes, executing those in a very consistent nature, and then optimize them, provide you with in the ballpark of 20% productivity gains, in some cases even more depending on your processes. And these are very similar and actually a little less than the numbers we see in a distribution center, primarily because the retail environment is a different environment, right? It has customers, it has other things that lend to a little bit less of a productivity gain, but still a quite substantial productivity gain at the end of the day. And the nice thing is for retailers, that doesn't mean people go away from your store. It means that you can take that additional labor that you're saving and you can apply that to other areas. as an example, you can apply that to more effectively replenishing the shelves or counting inventory so that you have better inventory information for your on-hand inventory numbers. Not only that you post to your website, but also that you do your ordering from. This can help reduce the amount of out of stocks. The last time I checked the out of stock trending numbers, I think the average out of stock rate is around 8%. And every time you can reduce that number, you have the opportunity to increase sales because you're driving that customer to make that purchase. You're not allowing them to leave your store or leave your website in a state of dissatisfaction, right? Keeping them a happy customer, providing that customer experience, which leads them to be that repeat customer that you can count on week after week to buy for their family and sustain that online demand that you're seeing on an ongoing basis. So we've talked a lot about retail, and I've mentioned distribution centers a couple times, but I wanted to really bring that home with this comparison, right? We've done, as Honeywell, we've done lots of work in distribution centers, and specifically related to the Honeywell Voice business. We've been in the distribution center for nearly 30 years with our solutions, helping distribution centers perform these types of activities related to receiving goods, staging them for put away, inventory management functions like replenishment or cycle counting, as well as picking and packing and shipping. Things that are core to the solutions that we provide and the value that our customers gain from using our solutions on a regular basis. Install bases around the world, nearly 1 million users use our solutions every day. And we have taken that technology platform and we have brought it to the retail environment. Because if you look at how retail operates, while the store is laid out differently, it's laid out for the customer, and there are customers inside, so it is a different environment. The processes that you execute on a daily basis are very similar. Retailers receive goods, they stage them for put away, whether it be in the back of the store or out on the store floor, right? They do picking activities, and as we've seen over the last 3 months, they're picking more orders per day on a regular basis. They will pack those, they will prepare those for either pickup or some type of delivery, shipping, whether it's be through your own shipping resources that you're doing in-house, or you are partnered with some third-party provider. And then lastly, retailers are doing inventory management functions. They're counting the inventory, they're replenishing those shelves, all very similar functions to the distribution center. So if we take the solutions from the distribution center and take that same technology that we've provided, you come up with what we refer to as guided work for retail, which is a mobile application that you can use on Honeywell devices or existing devices that you've purchased. And we pair it with a headset, and we walk them through step by step how to perform these functions so that they can do it more effectively, increasing that productivity, as well as allowing them to still interact with customers when they need to. Supporting all these different workflows throughout your operation. I threw a technical slide in just in case there's somebody that's has some of a technical background or there's some interest in this, right? We are not asking retailers to rip out or remove all of the existing applications or infrastructure that they've invested in over time. I know it's a very expensive process to implement and roll out solutions based on my previous experiences. This solution is what I would refer to as an add-on or a bolt-on to your existing set of solutions, right? We have an API layer for integration so that we can take the data from your existing systems, whether it be an inventory system or an order management system, and we provide that as an execution engine to the mobile worker through that mobile application. So it seamlessly can integrate with your existing retail environment. We're not asking you to rip and replace or remove an order management system, and ours is going to replace it. This is something that complements those types of solutions and can be stood up and implemented very quickly. So what does it look like at a glance, right? It's that mobile application that I referenced. It's running on an Android device. We have Honeywell headsets that you could use with this as well. There are other headsets that are available that could be applicable. You may have already invested in some of those as well. And then we have the retail web services. That's that integration that I talked about that allows the data to flow between the mobile application and your solutions. And then additionally, if you want to refine and even become more efficient and manage your retail workforce even better, we have in our portfolio a labor management solution that we refer to that's called Goalpost. And that can take this transactional, this operational data that you are using, you're generating this data based on picking orders or cycle counting, and really refine and understand your labor footprint and what levers that you have to be able to move labor around your store, use it more effectively, who your top workers are, who needs maybe some coaching or retraining. A really powerful tool that complements these execution type engines like guided work for retail. Again, really focused on the productivity, increasing up to 20, even 35% in some cases, right? Let's reduce those out of stocks, right? Increase the sales, keep that online channel demand churning for your business, as well as we can onboard and train much more rapidly than traditional onboarding and training activities, because the application is guiding them through the process and they're learning as they use the application. As always, I feel that the most important voice is the customers, and I love hearing from retailers. I love learning about their experiences and their challenges. Spent most of my career in retail, and it's always changing, and retailers are really great at adapting. So more than happy to turn this over to Tracy now for any types of questions that may have come in over the last 30 minutes or so.
Perfect, John. Thanks so much. And as John mentioned, we're going to move on to the question and answer portion of our event. As a reminder, you may type a question, an online question at any time in that Q&A feature along the bottom of your screen, and we will attempt to get to everyone's questions today. We had quite a few that came in during the event. So I'll go ahead and start. First question, John, I think you might have touched on this, but the question is, I saw that Honeywell Android devices are part of the solution. I just recently purchased some non-Honeywell devices for my stores. Can my devices be used, or do I need to buy new devices?
Sure. No, that's a great question, and it's probably one of the most common questions we get. First and foremost, this is a software solution. And while Honeywell does have fantastic Android devices in their portfolio, and we do a lot of testing and we can function on those devices, we realize that retailers have made investments in Android devices over the course of the last many years. So what we do is we have a set of minimum specifications for the device to make sure that our software can perform to the capabilities that we know retailers will demand. So we publish those, and it is sufficient for not only Honeywell devices, but several non-Honeywell devices as well. So generally, it's not a problem. We would just need to review the minimum specifications.
Okay, thanks. Next question. Let's see. Can you describe the type of work involved or how long it typically takes to integrate this solution into an existing or current application?
Sure. So we've seen over the typical integration times are very similar to what we see in the distribution center. We take a very similar approach. In distribution centers, you have warehouse management solutions or some type of host solution. In retail, you have similar solutions. They're just focused on retail operations. So what we've typically seen is the same type of implementation or integration timeframe in the DC. So that typically, from a pure integration standpoint, is typically around 4 weeks of integration work. Could be less, but may vary depending on your particular operation or workflow that you are deploying. But a fair kind of ballpark is about 4 weeks of integration effort. And then obviously there's additional project processes and rollout activities that would occur after that.
Okay. Next question. What types of retail environments are best suited for a solution like this?
So obviously with the some of the data that we're seeing with the move of the online channel to supermarkets, supermarkets are a key retail segment that are a good fit for this. And that's because they have a very consistent high order volume as well as high item count per order. So it doesn't have to be both, but they are what I would call the sweet spot for really taking advantage and getting the productivity gains for a solution like this. Other retail segments that are a good fit for a solution like this are do-it-yourself, home improvement type centers. In many cases, those types of retailers are already a giant warehouse and already do a lot of the same functions as a warehouse as far as the way they label their locations and the way they operate. And then also, I would say pharmaceutical or health and wellness type facilities are also another good fit.
Okay, so this next question is kind of piggybacks on that a little bit. Can I use the same solution for dark stores and retail stores, or are these separate applications?
No, it's the same application. So you can use the same solution if you have a combination of dark store and retail store environment. And to be honest, that's how most retailers are deploying or meeting the demand of the click and collect customer is through a combination. So the solution can support either or, and in some cases it's a both. So you can use it across your retail locations, including the dark stores. We would just want to make sure that we evaluate all of the processes so that if there are any differences in how you operate a dark store versus the retail location, that we account for those in any type of integration or deployment functions that we would perform.
Okay, what workflow or workflows should be deployed first? Well, this is a two-part question. I should have mentioned that, sorry. So the first part is what workflow or workflows should be deployed first? And then the second part is there help or best practices for this?
Sure, so I'm going to start with the best practices because every retailer is a little bit different. So it's hard for me to tell you what workflow would be best to deploy first, but I can tell you what we commonly see, but let's start with the best practices. So part of our approach in engaging with a potential customer of our solutions is really understanding your challenges for you, the retailer, and also speaking and walking through your processes at the retail site, whether it be the dark store or a retail location. So we can really understand your processes and highlight where the opportunities are, whether it be a process improvement opportunity or potentially a technology solution opportunity. And we will document that and walk you through that, where we see either the best practices being applied or technology being applied. And we work with you on trying to come up with a conservative return on your investment. So you can really understand if I deploy these workflows first and help you prioritize the workflows that you want to deploy first so that you can get the most out of your investment. Okay,
thank you. Let's see, there's another question about implementation, but I think you pretty much answered that already. How long does a typical implementation take? I feel like you touched on that.
Yeah, I touched on it a little bit. I think the previous question was specific around the integration effort. So if we look at the whole implementation, the integration effort's probably about a month of that. And the actual work to do and implement the full implementation, including training and rollout, or potentially the first phase of a rollout, is typically anywhere from 3 to 4 months. Could be less than that depending on how aggressive the retailer is and how much they want to own some of those rollout and project management responsibilities. But those are all aspects of the overall project that we would work with the retailer on, so that they're comfortable with the plan on how to implement a solution like this.
Okay, and sort of keeping in this sort of same vein of questioning, the next one is, how long does it take to train new team members on a solution like this?
So typically we see that the training activities range anywhere from 3 to 5 days, depending on the workflow and depending on the team member or the store associate. And that 3 to 5 days isn't you're fully trained after 3 to 5 days. That's where we believe the first phase of making that employee effective, ramping them up very quickly, happens at about 3 to 5 days. And then you'll see another bump in productivity, typically about 10 to 15 days after that, because they become very used to how the operational processes and the system work together. So you see an initial bump, and then you see a secondary bump in getting your team members up to speed very quickly. And this is even true for temporary team members that maybe are only working for a seasonal, Christmas season or some other type of holiday season.
Okay. Okay, here's a question that's specific to kind of what the current state of the world is right now. From a safety for worker standpoint, does your software help to maintain distance between employees?
So the software itself doesn't currently have that capability in it. We are working with, obviously it's Android, so it's been in the news. Google and Android, as well as other device manufacturers, are providing those types of mechanisms to track when you come in proximity. So that the Android devices use, we're leaving that up to the device manufacturer. And when those capabilities become available, then we can certainly push information back to whatever type of repository that you need, or you're tracking those contact tracing type events. And I know pretty certain that Honeywell is working on those things as well, since we have Android devices in our portfolio. But something we can certainly have a conversation with any retailer and get the right people involved to make sure that we're providing the right information.
Okay. Okay, next question. Can you describe how the speech recognition works and where it is happening?
Sure. So the speech recognition is Honeywell proprietary speech recognition. We refer to it as speaker dependent or trained voice. So we ask that your worker, your store team member, will spend about 10 to 15 minutes one time when we implement the solution, training their speech pattern. And we train a common, the numbers 0 through 9, and we train some common words that they'll need to utilize the system. And that creates a voice or a speech template. And that template is associated with that worker. And when they log in, that speech template is downloaded to the mobile device that they're using, so that all the speech recognition happens on the mobile computer. So, and we do that for a couple of reasons. One, we know that retailers as well as distribution centers require a high-performing environment. So having the speech recognition on the device allows for that high-speed speech recognition. And so there's no latency. We don't have to go out to another server or a cloud environment to do any type of speech recognition. And it also allows us to, if needed, work in an offline mode if for some reason there's some type of network outage or they go into a spot in the store that might not have the best Wi-Fi capabilities.
Okay, let's see. Do I need to deploy a server to every store location?
No, and in fact, I wouldn't. That would be a horrible solution, to be honest, because there's such an investment. Some of these, many retailers have hundreds, in some cases thousands of stores, and that type of investment of having a server in every store would not make this a good solution from an architectural or even an investment standpoint. So we really look for you to have a centralized data center that we can deploy servers into that would help communicate and manage with the mobile application that you deploy to the store. So the footprint is very light and very manageable.
Okay, let's see, next question. Are there any reporting or analytics that are provided as part of this solution?
Sure, so we do have a couple basic reports around different type of transactions and minimal amount of available in the application that we have, but we do provide mechanisms because we found that most retailers have a very robust data analytics or business intelligence team as part of their business. So we've done two things. Is one, we've provided mechanisms so that it's easy to export some of that data, as well as I mentioned earlier, we have a labor management solution that's integrated with Guided Work for Retail that we can also export data and send the data over to Goalpost so that you can run labor management specific analytics and manage your labor force in a more effective way.
Okay. Okay, next question is about prerequisites for implementing voice in retail, and also asking if something in the warehouse like a WMS or a WCS is a must. And do we need planogram so the voice solution can work?
So I'll answer the planogram question first. We don't necessarily require planograms specifically. What we do require is some level of location data. So, and that can vary by retailer. It can vary by type of retailer as well. But we need to be able to provide the worker with enough information to get them with what I would say arm's length. So within 3 to 4 feet of the item that they're going to be, or the task that they're going to be performing. So in department stores, what we found is that we can typically get them to a specific area of the store, so men's or women's, and we can even say maybe it's knits or denim, and we can even potentially get them to the particular table or hanging rack. Do it yourself, as I mentioned, are typically labeling locations very much like a distribution center, so they can typically get very granular in their type of location data. And then supermarkets seems like it's somewhere in the middle is what we're finding, where they can typically get us to the aisle, the side of the aisle in a 4-foot section, and they can tell us which elevation, whether it's the bottom of the shelf or the top shelf. So it varies, but we do require some level of location data. And we can work through best practices for your particular type of retail environment on what works best. Related to the integration or I think it was the WES or WMS, right? Retailers, what we're seeing either have some type of off-the-shelf or big name type of retail solution, or they've done it themselves internally through development efforts, so they have some type of homegrown. In either case, we have that common set of APIs that I talked about that we can integrate into either the homegrown or the off-the-shelf type providers. So the integration typically isn't an issue, as well as if for some reason APIs aren't the mechanism that you want to use, we also have other ways that we can import and export data into the system.
Okay, sorry, we're getting a lot
That's
of
okay.
questions. Just scrolling down here. Yes, absolutely. Can this solution be deployed on cloud?
So yes, it can. So our solutions built and can be deployed in a virtual or a cloud environment. The current architecture isn't necessarily set up to take advantage of all the capabilities of a cloud environment around scaling, but it can certainly be sized appropriately and put into a cloud hosted, whether it be a private cloud or a public cloud type environment. And we would work with the retailer to determine what the best approach would be for a sizing of the deployment.
Okay. Now, I know you touched on this a little bit when you answered the first question about using non-Honeywell devices, but this question is specifically around, are there any disadvantages to using third-party hardware for the solution?
So I wouldn't necessarily say there's any disadvantages. What I would say is, because we're in a business that also has Android devices in our portfolio, and we do a lot of testing against those devices, we also make recommendations back to our device team, the productivity products team, on things that we would like to see improved related to the version of Android that they're updating and deploying. The other thing that we have the capability of harnessing related to Honeywell devices is Honeywell devices have what we refer to as a sensor array. So there's, I think it's about 14 or 15 different sensors that are collecting data. And if need be, we can activate those sensors so that retailer can start understanding different things about how the devices are performing or handling. So you can see things like battery usage and when batteries are going to fail. You can see travel time and how people, it works like a step counter. So you can see if somebody drops a device. I think there's a sensor to determine if the device went out of a geofence, so you can see if somebody's trying to leave work with your device. So there's all sorts of other things that we can start unleashing in providing data back to consumers if they use the entire Honeywell ecosystem of software and hardware. And some of those things, if you use a non-Honeywell device, we just don't have access or the capabilities to provide back to the customer.
Okay. Let's see, is it possible to train the system in a language other than English, or how is that dialect taken care of?
Sure. So the training can be in any language that you choose, because you're training your voice template or your speech template. You just need to be consistent in how you, what you say based on the command. So as an example, if you want to say 1 for the number 1, that's great. But if you want to say uno, you can say uno, right? But you just have to be consistent in how you speak to the system. So the language, as far as training your template, is any language that you want to speak. For the speech that you hear in the headset, we support all the different languages that the Android device and Google support today. And I don't even have a number on how many that is. And my guess is it's probably in the 50 or 60 range, probably more.
Okay. Let's see. How about ROI? Can you explain anything with regards to that?
Sure. So as I mentioned, we have a process where we talk to you about your challenges. And part of that is understanding the processes that are important to you, where you're seeing, where the potential is for maybe the largest productivity gain or labor savings based on your operation. And then we have an ROI calculator that we will work with you. It's really a tool for you so that you can understand what the project looks like, where you can anticipate the savings, and also understand the cost of what a solution like this would entail. So we work with you and look specifically at that process around the type, how many people you use in a particular shift to pick orders, how many orders you process a day, how many items on an order. As an example, your fully burdened wage rate. So we can pull all these factors into what that calculator needs to produce what we refer to as the standard ROI. And then we review that with you, make sure that you have an opportunity, this is your ROI, to really challenge those results so that we can refine this, and then you can use it as you go forward to get any type of project approvals or fundings to move to the next step if that's what you would like to do.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I think actually that might be all the time that we have for questions today, but we do have a couple more that came in. So we appreciate all of the participation from the attendees. And if we were unable to answer your question during today's live event, we will certainly send you a response via email. So thank you, John, for your time to do the webinar and answer all the questions. It was really, really insightful. To all of our attendees, as a reminder, within approximately 48 hours after this live event, you can access this presentation on demand at intelligrated.com/on-the-move. You will also receive an email in a couple of days with a link to the recorded event, as well as to a white paper titled Apply DC Science to the Art of Retail with Voice Technology. On behalf of Honeywell Intelligrated, thank you for attending today's On the Move webinar. We hope you can join us for one or all of our 3 remaining webinars this month as our Adapting to Modern Omnichannel Retail Challenges webinar series continues through June. Registration information can be found at our website at intelligrated.com/on-the-move. And thank you for your time and have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you.